Yavapai Broadcasting and the City of Cottonwood proudly present Inside Cottonwood, an inside look at the decisions and issues of the City of Cottonwood. Brought to you by Arizona Smile Designers and Cliff Castle Casino. Here's Cottonwood Mayor Diane Jones.
Hello, this is Inside Cottonwood, and I'm Diane Jones, Mayor of Cottonwood. I'm your host today, and we're interviewing a couple of local citizens, Tim Elinsky and Greg Ruland. They are members of the very new Historic Preservation Commission that the City of Cottonwood Council just created. Tim is also on the City Council, and Greg Ruland works as a news reporter for Larson Newspapers. So we appreciate having you fellows come in today to talk about historic preservation, and we might just start with both of you telling us why you were interested in this and why you applied for the position on the commission. So you want to start, Tim? You're the president, and Greg's the vice president.
That's
or
right,
chair.
Yeah,
Okay.
vice chair. Well, I've always had an interest in historic preservation. It's partly what I do for a living, and I felt there was a great need in Cottonwood to pursue historic preservation. I think we were all saddened when we lost a few.
I know we were
buildings.
very sad when we lost the Strawn house. You know, we just worked in every which way we could to try to save that building, but one estimate was $700,000. I think that Charlie Scully had estimated that, and you know, we just really, it is sad to lose a home like that.
Right.
And
so hopefully by forming a commission we can be prepared to preserve those buildings, or at least have a better avenue to pursue that.
Sure. Now, how many members does your commission have?
We have 7.
And Greg, you go ahead and share with me why you joined one of the 7.
I was a history major in college, and the family's always been interested in local history in particular. My mother is an author, and she has about 7 books on local history. I served some time in Sedona on their commission, and I learned about how historic structures preserve our sense of place, our background, our culture, and I'm interested in advancing that in Cottonwood. I think Cottonwood has a distinctive culture which is reflected in its buildings, and we're going to have a chance to save some of those.
Now, as I understand it, there are some older buildings in Old Town that maybe don't fit in the criteria that you would be looking at. So what would you do? Say City Hall, for instance. You know, there's talk about someday building a new City Hall in that area. So what would your commission, how would you handle something like that?
Well, City Hall actually may be eligible at this point. It was built in the 60s, wasn't it?
I think so. I think it is 50 years old.
Yeah, so it may be eligible now to achieve landmark status, but...
And explain landmark status and how they register for those types of things.
Well, I'll let Greg explain that. He would understand it a lot better.
Thanks, Tim. I did get a chance to work on the ordinance in Sedona, and we're working on that ordinance right now to make a recommendation to the council for how we might go about that. But some of the criteria we've looked at so far, 50 years is an important mark, and we've decided if it's not 50 years old, it won't get landmark status. At least we're discussing that. It has to have integrity in terms of, does it look pretty much like it did back in the day? So
not too many changes.
Not too many changes, and it's the exterior that's key. The interior changes aren't so, if there were some made, that's not as important for the purposes of landmark designation. I think a better example might be the jail.
Right, and I was going to ask you about the jail. There was some discussion at a meeting, Cottonwood Council meeting, that you guys brought up, that you were concerned about the jail. And I know there are plans to renovate it probably for some type of business to be in Old Town, to support Old Town. And as you know, it's been renovated. I just wish personally that somehow we could make the bricks look like the River Rock so that it would look more original. But is that building original enough to have a great concern about it? Would it be eligible for some of these historic statuses?
I think that it would be eligible. The addition was put on in the 70s, I believe. So
Yeah, right. Oh, good.
yeah, it would be eligible. It probably wouldn't, as Greg was saying, have as much integrity, as.
Well, look at the brick here. I mean, this is from the 70s edition, right? When you stand in front of the jail, you can see, it's real clear where the old building was and how what was built added onto it. See, that's real obvious. That would not necessarily disqualify it because it's really obvious. If the add-ons and changes are quite obvious, then you can still see, and you can, our ordinance would allow us to preserve, landmark just the River Rock portion of the building. I mean, we have that option. So if you wrap a deck around it and make other changes that have been talked about, it may lose that.
As I understand it, the jail cells are still inside there. So I understand that I'd like to just acknowledge some of the other members who are on this commission. There's Ryan Bigelow, Glenda Farley, Karen Leff, Annabelle Schlippa, and Carol Ann Warren is the team. And how many times have you all met?
Officially, I think we've met 3 times.
Okay. Do you have a special day of the month that you meet once a month, or is that set?
Wednesday. Yeah, the second Wednesday of the month.
The second Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m.
At the council chambers.
At the Cottonwood City Council Chambers. 817 North Main, I believe, across from City Hall anyway. And of course, this is open to the public, and the public can come and listen in and participate in the upcoming decisions and make suggestions. And I'm sure you welcome that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome the community. So talking about history, let's talk a little bit about Old Town.
Okay.
Are there buildings in Old Town that have the historical designation that you know of?
There are.
Yes, there is a there's a historic district now, and many of many of those buildings are what they call contributors to the district. One of them is the Civic Center, and one of the things we looked at our most recent meeting was we've adopted that as the first building we want to work on in terms of learning how landmarking works, and we're going to try and get it into the National Register of Historic Places.
I love that old building, and I do want to see the council do whatever they can to preserve it. It needs some work, but it's still a very usable building. It was built in 1939 by the WPA. I think that was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's program.
That's right.
During the Depression.
Yeah. Glenda Farley's done an amazing amount of research on it. And,
I know, and I'm going to do an interview, I think, with Glenda and Karen and try to get them in here and get some of the details of the history of the area. Now, there was a little bit of concern. We do have the Verde Historical Society and the Clemenceau Museum, and I think there was a little bit of consternation about were we going to replicate what they did or compete? And can you address that a little bit? This is a City of Cottonwood Historic Commission, and do you plan to work with them at all, include them? How will this all work?
Certainly, I think we would all need to cooperate together. The difference between theirs and the City of Cottonwoods is that the City Council appointed or formed the commission, in which case we can become a certified local government, which is really I think the key difference that will enable us to get
grants
money.
And those sorts of things,
right?
More
and better
opportunities.
support from the state and from the federal government as well.
And you work with SHPO a lot, as I understand it.
We
get
will
those
be
designations.
Right. I mean, we're fledgling yet, so they want to see us, work hard to form the ordinance, and then they'll give us assistance as we need it.
Right.
They're going to look it over and help us make sure that we qualify as this local government entity, so we make sure we get those grants. That is definitely a key difference. I think it's also important to know that the Verde Historical Society has got a much broader interest in many things that relate to history, and they have their own separate organization to deal with those things in the museum, please go see the museum.
Oh, the Clemenceau Museum
Yeah,
is
and,
so awesome.
It truly is, and they do a great job. I'm a member. But yeah, we do two different things. What the commission's going to do is be looking strictly at structures, although ditches might be landmarked. There are some historic, and the ordinance is also going to include prehistory, so archaeological sites could also be landmarked through the ordinance. So we're landmarking structures and places. That's what we do.
Okay. Well, it's time already to take a little break. The half hour flies by. I'm Mayor Diane Jones, and we'll be right back.